He grazed her jaw with his fingertips, tilting her face up to meet his gaze. He traced her lower lip with his thumb, pressure light yet possessive. She should have stepped back, should have reminded him of boundaries. But she didn't. The fluorescent lights of Apex Innovations hummed softly above the sprawling Gangnam headquarters, casting sharp reflections on glass walls that stretched like endless mirrors into the Seoul night. Tanisha Kim stepped out of the elevator on the 32nd floor, her heels clicking with purpose against polished marble, the sound echoing like a heartbeat in the near-empty building. At 31, she had clawed her way up from junior analyst to senior marketing director in record time, her latest campaign turning a failing product line into a viral sensation that tripled quarterly sales overnight. The promotion email had arrived that morning, crisp and official, but nothing prepared her for the man waiting behind the frosted door of the strategy wing. Woo-jin Park stood at his desk, tall and impossibly commanding in a charcoal suit tailored to perfection, the fabric hugging broad shoulders and a lean frame that spoke of disciplined restraint. His dark hair was swept back just enough to reveal sharp features, eyes like polished obsidian that flicked up as she entered. The air shifted, thickened, as if the room itself recognized the collision about to happen. He extended a hand, grip firm and warm, fingers lingering a fraction too long against her palm, sending an unexpected jolt straight to her core. Tanisha met his gaze without flinching, her deep brown skin glowing under the office lights, full lips curving into a confident smile that hid the sudden rush of heat pooling low in her belly. She wore a fitted black pencil skirt that hugged generous hips, a silk blouse unbuttoned just enough to reveal the lace edge of a bra beneath, professional yet undeniably sensual. Woo-jin's eyes traced the line of her throat before returning to her face, something dark and hungry flickering there before he masked it with cool professionalism. He gestured to the seat across his desk, voice low and precise as he outlined her new role, reporting directly to him, leading joint strategy for the company's biggest upcoming launch. Every word carried weight, every pause deliberate, as if testing her reactions. Tanisha leaned forward, elbows on the glass surface, challenging his proposed timelines, with sharp counterpoints that made his brow arch in surprise or approval. The debate stretched late into the evening, colleagues filtering out until only the hum of servers and distant city traffic remained. At some point, she reached for the coffee pot on the credenza behind him, body brushing close as she poured the scent of her perfume, warm vanilla and jasmine, mingling with his crisp cedar cologne. Woo-jin turned slightly, their arms grazing, the contact electric, skin prickling where fabric met fabric. Tanisha felt her breath catch, nipples tightening beneath silk as his gaze dropped briefly to the swell of her breasts before snapping back up. She refused to step away, holding the space, letting the tension coil tighter. He cleared his throat, voice rougher now, suggesting they review the final pitch deck together. Screens glowed between them, but focus fractured. Every accidental touch of fingers on the trackpad, every shared glance over data charts, building heat that had nothing to do with work. When she pointed out a flaw in his projections, leaning close enough that her breath fanned his ear, Woo-jin's hand settled on the back of her chair, thumb brushing the bare skin at her nape, slow, deliberate, testing. Tanisha shivered, thighs pressing together against the sudden ache blooming between them. The building grew quieter, security lights dimming in unused wings. They moved to the main conference room for better projection, the long glass table reflecting city lights like a dark mirror. Tanisha stood at the head, presenting revised slides, body swaying slightly with emphasis, skirt riding higher as she reached for the remote. Woo-jin watched from his seat, posture relaxed but eyes burning, tracing the curve of her calves, the way fabric stretched over full hips. When she finished, silence stretched, thick and heavy, until he rose slowly, rounding the table until he stood inches away, his hand lifted, fingertips grazing her jaw, tilting her face up to meet his gaze. Tanisha's pulse thundered, lips parting on a soft inhale as he traced her lower lip with his thumb, pressure light yet possessive. She should have stepped back, should have reminded him of boundaries, but instead she leaned into the touch, tongue flicking out to taste the pad of his thumb, salty and warm. A low sound rumbled in his chest, restraint snapping as he cupped her face and claimed her mouth in a kiss that started slow, exploring, then turned ravenous. Tongues tangled, teeth nipping, breath stolen and returned hotter. His hands slid down her sides, gripping her waist, pulling her flush against the hard length, straining his trousers. Tanisha moaned into his mouth, fingers fisting his shirt, yanking him closer until she felt every inch of him pressed against her softness. The kiss deepened, wet and urgent, her back arching as his palms cupped her breasts through silk, thumbs circling peaked nipples until they ached deliciously. They broke apart, gasping, foreheads pressed together, but the fire only flared higher. Woo-jin lifted her onto the conference table in one smooth motion, stepping between her thighs, skirt riding up to reveal lace stockings and the damp evidence of her arousal. His mouth trailed fire down her throat, teeth grazing the pulse point before soothing with tongue, hands pushing her blouse open, buttons scattering. Cool air kissed heated skin a second before his hot mouth closed over one nipple through lace, sucking hard, tongue flicking relentlessly until Tanisha cried out, hips grinding against him, seeking friction. She reached for his belt, fingers trembling with need, freeing him swiftly, hand wrapping around thick heat that pulsed in her grip. Woo-jin groaned, head falling to her shoulder as she stroked him slowly, firmly, thumbs circling the slick tip. He retaliated by slipping fingers beneath her panties, finding her drenched, circling her clit with devastating precision until her thighs shook. One thick finger slid inside, then two, curling just right, pumping in rhythm with her strokes until pleasure coiled unbearably tight. The elevator dinged somewhere down the hall, distant but jarring. They froze, breaths ragged, bodies trembling on the edge. Woo-jin withdrew slowly, eyes locked on hers as he fixed her skirt, helped button her blouse with shaking hands. Tanisha slid off the table, legs unsteady, lips swollen and tingling. They said nothing, the weight of what almost happened hanging heavy between them. Hey, beautiful watchers! If your heart is racing right now, if you're feeling every spark between Tanisha and Woo-jin burning through your screen, do me a massive favor. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. You deserve to know how far this fire goes. Trust me, it's about to consume everything. Days blurred into weeks of torturous proximity. Strategy sessions stretched late deliberately now, excuses thin but unquestioned. They worked side by side at adjacent desks, thighs brushing under the table, fingers lingering when passing documents. Every shared glance carried memory of that conference room, every accidental touch reigniting heat that never fully cooled. One evening, the building's power flickered during a thunderstorm, emergency lights casting red glows along corridors. The elevator jammed between floors, trapping them inside the mirrored box. Woo-jin hit the emergency button, voice calm, but when lights stabilized dimly, he turned to her with raw hunger. Tanisha backed against the wall, breath shallow as he caged her in, hands braced beside her head. No words, just the sound of rain against the shaft and their breathing. His mouth crashed onto hers again, deeper this time, more desperate. Hands roamed freely now, her skirt pushed high, his fingers slipping beneath lace to stroke slick folds, until she whimpered into his kiss. Tanisha freed him once more, guiding his length to her entrance, teasing, coating him in her wetness. He thrust shallowly against her, rubbing through sensitive nerves until her legs nearly buckled. The elevator lurched suddenly, resuming ascent. They separated frantically, fixing clothes just as doors opened on their floor. But the damage was done. Need now a living thing between them. Impossible to ignore. Back in the office, storm raging outside, they barely made it to the supply closet before restraint shattered completely. Door locked, shelves rattling as he pressed her against them, mouth devouring hers while hands stripped away barriers. Her blouse fell open, bra pushed down, his hot mouth closing over bare nipples, sucking hard enough to leave marks. Tanisha's fingers tangled in his hair, holding him there as pleasure shot straight to her core. He dropped to his knees, pushing her skirt to her waist, panties torn aside. His tongue found her clit instantly, lapping slow then fast, fingers sliding deep inside, curling relentlessly. Tanisha's head fell back against shelves, moans echoing in the cramped space, as climax built swift and brutal, crashing over her in shuddering waves that left her knees weak. Woo-jin rose, spinning her to face the wall, entering her from behind in one deep thrust that stole both their breaths. The angle was perfect, intense, every stroke hitting spots that made stars burst behind her eyes. His hand covered her mouth gently to muffle cries, the other gripping her hip as he drove harder, faster, chasing shared release. They came together, bodies locked tight, pulsing around each other in perfect, devastating sync. Afterward, wrapped in each other's arms on the closet floor, reality crept back. Tanisha traced the lines of his face, vulnerability surfacing. She whispered about her mother leaving when she was young, how trust felt impossible now. Woo-jin pressed kisses to her temple, sharing how his father's suicide after false accusations left him terrified of real connection. The confessions wove them tighter, even as danger loomed. Tell me in the comments. Loves, if you were Tanisha right now, would you risk everything for more stolen nights? Or pull away before someone gets burned? Vion's subtle sabotage began soon after. Altered reports, whispered doubts in meetings. But the nights belonged to them, passion growing bolder, more addictive. Yet every climax carried the shadow of consequences neither could ignore. If this slow burn is melting you right now, making your skin tingle with every touch, every kiss, please subscribe. Turn on notifications, because the betrayal's coming will shatter everything, and you need to be here when it explodes. The storm outside mirrored the one building within, lightning flashing across glass walls as two souls danced closer to the edge, knowing one wrong step could destroy them both. But for now, the fire consumed everything else. The weeks that followed blurred into a haze of stolen moments and escalating risk. Tanisha and Woo-jin found every excuse to linger after hours, the office transforming into their private playground of desire. Quick, frantic encounters in the executive restroom became routine, door locked, her back pressed against cool marble as he hiked her skirt high, fingers plunging deep while his mouth swallowed her moans. She would drop to her knees in return, taking him fully, tongue swirling until his hands fisted her hair and he spilled hot down her throat with a muffled groan. Nights in his Hanamdong penthouse were slower, more indulgent. He would undress her piece by piece, kissing every inch of exposed skin, tongue tracing the curve of her breasts, teeth grazing sensitive nipples, until she arched off the bed, begging for more. Woo-jin worshipped her body with devastating patience, mouth trailing lower, parting her thighs to feast slowly, languidly, until climax built in endless waves that left her trembling and soaked. Only then would he rise above her, sliding deep in one smooth thrust, eyes locked as he moved with deliberate strokes that hit every perfect spot, drawing out pleasure until they shattered together, bodies slick and fused. But cracks began to show. Real's surprise audit announcement sent ripples through the company, whispers of restructuring and loyalty tests. Tanisha discovered the first doctored email in her sent folder, one she never wrote, leaking confidential projections to a rival firm. Panic surged as she traced the alterations, realizing someone with high access had framed her perfectly. The board demanded answers. Woo-jin, as department head, was forced to lead the internal investigation. In the packed conference room, eyes bored into her as he questioned her professionally, voice steady but gaze tormented. Tanisha defended herself fiercely, presenting timestamps and access logs that cleared her name partially, but suspicion lingered like smoke. Vian sat across the table, expressions sympathetic yet eyes gleaming with triumph. Afterward, alone in his office, Tanisha confronted him, voice shaking with hurt. She accused him of throwing her under the bus to save his position, the words cutting deep because they echoed her mother's sudden departure, leaving her feeling disposable again. Woo-jin crossed the room in 2 strides, pulling her into his arms despite her resistance, mouth crashing onto hers in a kiss that was equal parts apology and desperation. He backed her against the desk, hands sliding under her skirt, finding her already wet despite the anger. Fingers circled her clit with urgent precision, slipping inside as she gasped into his mouth. Tanisha gripped his shoulders, nails digging through fabric as pleasure overrode pain. He lifted her onto the desk, spreading her thighs wide, dropping to his knees to replace fingers with tongue, lapping hungrily until she came hard against his mouth, thighs clamping his head. Woo-jin rose, freeing himself swiftly, thrusting deep while she was still pulsing from release. The desk rocked with every powerful stroke, papers scattering, her moans echoing off glass walls. He drove harder, faster, one hand tangled in her hair, the other rubbing tight circles until another climax ripped through her, pulling him over the edge with her. They clung together afterward, breaths ragged, his whispered promises of protection barely penetrating the fear. Hey, my gorgeous watchers. If your pulse is pounding right now, if you're aching with Tanisha's fear and desire, please, I'm begging you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. This story is about to break hearts and burn everything down, and you cannot miss a single second. Calixte's sudden appearance in the lobby days later felt like a ghost returning. Her ex, the man who had stolen her ideas years ago and left her career in ruins, now stood smiling in a sharp suit, claiming a consulting contract with Apex. His eyes raked over her possessively, voice smooth as he suggested catching up over drinks. Tanisha refused coldly, but unease settled deep. That night, in Woo-jin's penthouse, suspicion poisoned the passion. She rode him slowly on the living room rug, hips grinding in deliberate circles, taking him deep while watching his face for any flicker of guilt. Pleasure built exquisite and torturous, her nails scoring his chest as climax approached. But she stopped suddenly, demanding answers about the investigation's delays. Woo-jin flipped her beneath him, thrusting hard and deep as if to silence doubt, mouth claiming hers until they both shattered. But the questions remained. Desperate for proof, Tanisha waited until he slept, then accessed his secure laptop with a bypassed password she had memorized from watching him type. Files loaded, and her world tilted. Months-old messages between Woo-jin and Vion outlined a sabotage plan designed to test team resilience under pressure, with Tanisha specifically named as the target most likely to rise strongest. He had known, had approved the framing, believing it would expose deeper corruption while toughening her for bigger roles. Betrayal hit like ice water. She woke him with a slap that echoed through the quiet penthouse, tears streaming as she screamed about being used as bait. Woo-jin sat up slowly, face ashen, admitting he orchestrated the crisis to draw out Ryul's embezzlement ring, knowing only someone as brilliant as her could survive and help expose it. But the personal cost, using their affair as camouflage, had spiraled beyond control because he fell too hard, too fast. Tanisha dressed in silence, every movement deliberate, ignoring his pleas. She left before dawn, the slam of the door final. Tell me quick in the comments, beautiful souls, if you were Tanisha right now, would you walk away forever? Or give him one last chance to prove the love was real? Boardroom warfare erupted days later. Ryul moved aggressively to demote Woo-jin, citing leadership failures during the audit. Anonymous threats arrived in Tanisha's inbox, demanding resignation or full exposure of the affair. Calixte cornered her in the underground garage that night, hand gripping her arm hard enough to bruise, whispering that he had fed Ryul everything for years, paid revenge for her ending their relationship and exposing his theft. Fear turned to fury. Tanisha kneed him hard, breaking free as Woo-jin appeared from the shadows, fists flying in brutal protection. Calixte went down bleeding, confessions spilling about, planting evidence under Ryul's orders. Bruised and bloodied, Woo-jin pulled Tanisha close, voice breaking as he admitted every risk was meant to shield her from the larger scheme, targeting her specifically for her rapid rise. They gathered evidence that night, hacking systems together, bodies pressed close at the computer, old sparks reigniting despite pain, fingers brushed, breaths mingled, until desperation won. He bent her over the desk, entering her from behind with raw need, each thrust a silent apology, her moans forgiveness. She wasn't ready to speak. Pleasure crested sharp and cleansing, leaving them both shaking. The emergency board meeting convened at Apex's private Jeju resort, ocean waves crashing below glass walls. Tanisha presented devastating proof of Ryul's decade-long embezzlement, accounts and transfers mirroring the false charges that drove Woo-jin's father to suicide. Ryul's face crumpled as authorities waiting outside moved in. Then Vion broke, tears streaming as she confessed everything, her sabotage born not of romantic jealousy, but blood resentment. She was Woo-jin's half-sister, hidden result of his father's affair, raised in shadows and groomed by Ryul to destroy the family from within. The revelation silenced the room. Woo-jin reeling from a sibling he never knew existed. In the final twist, Woo-jin revealed his masterstroke. He had faked the entire resilience test with undercover allies in security, using the manufactured crisis to lure Ryul into overreaching, clearing his father's name forever. The affair with Tanisha had begun as perfect cover, unexpected passion turning calculated deception into genuine love that nearly cost him everything. On the stormy Jeju beach that night, rain lashed sideways as truths settled. Tanisha faced him, soaked clothes clinging to every curve, eyes searching his for lies. Finding none, she stepped close, hands framing his face, kissing him slow and deep, tasting salt and redemption. Clothes peeled away under driving rain, bodies crashing together against wet rock. He lifted her, her legs locking around his waist, as he thrust deep, rain cascading over joined skin. Pleasure built savage beneath thunder, her nails scoring his back, his mouth at her throat, as they moved in perfect, desperate rhythm. Climax hit simultaneously, fierce and cathartic, waves roaring approval as they held each other through aftershocks. Woo-jin dropped to one knee in the surf, ring produced from his pocket, voice steady despite trembling. Tanisha's yes came through happy tears, sealing their future as co-CEOs of a cleansed empire, hearts finally free of old ghosts. If this redemption has you crying and cheering at the same time, if you felt every raindrop and every thrust of their healing, please subscribe right now. This channel lives for stories that wreck you beautifully, and there are so many more coming. And you, incredible soul who stayed until the very last word. Drop a heart in the comments if Tanisha and Woo-jin earned their stormy happy ending. Tell me your favorite moment, the one that made you catch your breath. Thank you for riding this wildfire with me. Velvet Ambition is complete, but our next forbidden romance starts soon. Stay subscribed, stay fierce, loves. See you there.